proper communication with your team members. It's kind of easy when something is big and right in front of your face to communicate about it. But it's, for me, one of the things that I had to learn was the little things. I give them so much direction. We do so much training and we do so many things on the big stuff and how to run sessions and all of this. But instead of communicating those little things, I would just run around fixing them. If you just continue to do it, what are the options? You're going to always have to continue to do it. They're never going to know that that's the way that you want it and that they're not doing it that way. And then what happens when you're not there? They're not going to do it because you've not communicated that properly with them.
As entrepreneurs, as we start out, we're typically small operations, right? It might just be you and your spouse, maybe you and you might have a business partner. And so with only one or two of you, you're doing everything. You're afraid of delegating basically out of fear that doesn't exist yet. You're afraid that, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, no one will ever do it as good as me. And you just have to find ways to just release control and do it in small steps. So it's not like overnight where you're just going to push everything off on somebody. If you spend time and have those systems set in place and then you have a system to be done, then it's easy to delegate that.
When you get someone better than you, when you're paying them $100K, you will find someone that is way better than you when you are paying a great income. But we are a lot of times someone's first job or an entry level job. And so no, they don't have enough experience in the workforce, right? And so it's you got to understand what you have and just know, okay, well, I want to have a team that's a little bit on a budget constriction. I will have to make up for it with a gap of training. And I have to put on myself expectations they will do 80% of the job as well as I would. Where owners get frustrated is they do compare everyone to themselves, but they have the most risk, so it pulls the most work effort out of them.
This is the Reinforce Your Gym podcast with your host, Dustin Vogel. This show is about arming gym owners with the tools, strategies, and lessons they need to take their business to the next level. That way, they can make a greater impact in their community. Now, let's get to work and reinforce your gym.
All right, welcome in everybody to another episode of the Reinforce Your Gym podcast. Today is going to be a fun one. We're going to be sharing failures, real life examples of failures where we have failed as leaders of businesses and leaders in our lives so that you guys can learn from that and we can hopefully shortcut you and you don't have to repeat it. Some people learn really well from hearing people's mistakes. Other people got to kind of touch the fire and go through the pain themselves. So we're hoping we can reduce that version of pain. So that's really it. Today's all about leadership because as we prepare to go into the new year, that's one of our big things that we really preach to every gym owner and just person in general is one of the best things you can do to grow your business is to become a better leader. Better leaders mean they're going to have better team members attracted to work with them. Better leaders are going to keep their clients longer. Better leaders are going to have a lot of problems in their business solved because of who they are, right? And so the thing that I always challenge gym owners is hey, I'm in a tough market or, people around here don't value fitness or, people are leaving because of price. And I'm let's just play a game for a sec. Pretend Elon Musk parachutes into your gym. He now owns it. He does not get his money. He does not get all of his contacts. Will he grow your business, right? And will any of these things stop him? No, because he's just so stubbornly confident in himself and he will make it happen. He will will it to happen because he's done the work on himself in terms of leadership. So it's that's what I want for you guys is to have that level of leadership confidence. And so we're just going to share our mistakes because we don't consider ourselves to be the best leaders in the world that we can, give you a whole training on it, but we can tell you where things went wrong. And then hopefully you can pick up the pieces and learn from that. Right. So Kim, I'm going to actually have you kick us off. When you hear me explain that, what is a leadership mistake you look back over your years as a business owner? What story comes to mind?
So to be honest with you, this is something that I am still working on in myself. And I think it's just because of who I am as a person. But the number one thing that comes to my head when you talk about this is honestly keeping people on as team members for too long, even though you've already identified something isn't working right. Whether maybe their schedule gets too crazy, so now they're constantly showing up late and you've had the conversations, but nothing's changing. Or maybe something changed with their passion or their dedication or something just isn't working right. But because you like them as a human, you keep them on for a little bit too long. And this is definitely something that I have had to learn kind of the hard way. And I think the other thing that happens, and I think maybe parents can relate to this, is, I think sometimes as leaders, we look at some of our team members and we know that they can be doing better. Their potential is there. We see potential in them, but maybe they're not at the right place in their life, or they just want something different for their own lives. But we see something different in them, so we continue to keep them on and maybe try to get them into this position, that they're really not ready for, or maybe want. So I think it's hiring very slowly, right? We always say hire slowly, fire quickly, but the last thing that I still struggle with, because I am always very kind and nice to everyone, and sometimes my other team members have said, "Hey, look, we all love this person, but something's not working, and you got to do something about it." So that's kind of my number one thing that I'm just constantly trying to remind myself.
And that's your optimism, which is one of your superpowers. And that's the
Yeah.
coach in you. You have to see what is the potential of someone, not what is in front of you right now. And I'm the same way. So that's why the whole time I was nodding to what you were saying. That's me too. I'm a people pleaser, and I very much am an optimist. And so it's one of those things that, like, they say that the business of your dreams is on the other side of a hard conversation. And an easy conversation is letting someone go who's a complete jerk, right? Like, they inappropriately touched a client, they did something way outside of your core values, like, you're gone. That's actually an easy conversation. I don't think a lot of business are. The hard conversations when the person is nice. It is like, it's nice, they're giving their best shot, they have done nothing wrong, they have just not been able to hit our performance standards. That's a hard conversation. That's why I call it a hard conversation. It's like, that's the one you have to go do to protect your business. So yes, like, I totally empathize with that. And one mistake that I'll kind of like branch off, that's not too far off from your example, is I have in the past, I've learned to do better at it, is create empathy jobs, right? And so this started in my gyms where a coach would say, "Man, I really like some more hours, but for whatever reason, I can't do morning and evening, or I can't do more coaching hours. What else do you got?" And I would just make up like, "All right, well, you're going to lead nurture now, and you're going to have like a Frankenstein role where this is actually supposed to be two different people, but we're going to let you do it." Right. And they would do horrible because it was about money first, and giving them a pity hour or a pity work, not like, are you equipped and are you skilled and are you the right person to be doing it, right? And so, like, I'd pop up this job title, or some people, it was even like, it was literally about job title. Like, they were like, "Hey, I got this extra, responsibility now. Can I get a new title?" Just because they literally wanted to feel important. I really had somebody ask that. I was just like, "No, we don't just make up titles at your whim." Like, so it's one of those things that, like, the way businesses ran is a job is posted, whether it's internally or externally, with a description. If you feel you can execute that, you fill that job posting. You don't like make them up on the fly. But that's what I did. I gave into the pressure. People asked me to make up a job on the fly for hours, or make up a new title because they wanted to feel more important. And again, old, weaker leader version of Dustin gave into that. And now I've learned not, right? It's like, nope, we got a clear path of where we're going and what roles the company needs, and people get plugged into those. And, like, the question is, are you a good fit? You got to go through an interview process. Because that's the other thing. The coach asked me on the side, like, between sessions or something, or like at the end of a morning block. And I said, yeah, it was like no interview prior. Like, "Yeah, you want to do lead nurture? Yeah, we need someone to do lead nurture. You're doing it now, Coach A." And it's like, no formal, onboarding and interviewing. It was just like, let's go, right? Here's the leads, get to work. Horrible mistake. But that's why I'm sharing it, so that other people don't do that. Jason, I'm going to throw the hot potato to you, man. What is a leadership story or mistake that you've made in your time as a business owner?
Yeah, I think what's really cool about this topic here is it's almost everything that we kind of spitballed in prepping for this call or this podcast was really just like all team related, because there again, we're the leaders, we're the cap on the business. So obviously one of our number one responsibilities is like, how do we organize and structure our team? So that's why like all of our topics. So there again, if you're looking for like trial tips and tricks, like we have other podcasts on that. So this is like leadership stuff, which is awesome. And so obviously our number one role as leaders, like I said, is like making sure we have our team in the right spot. We have them set up for the right success, right? And so That's the analogy we hear so many times, making sure they have the right team member on the right seat on the bus, right? I mean, that's the most important thing, is making sure that whatever role you do have them in, is that what they're meant to do. And I've made this mistake in the past where I've had someone come in and they're, again, with a gym, we have small teams. And I think that's why we get to know them, our team members and our coaches and trainers, we get to know them so well. Like that, like you said, Kim, that's why it's hard to make some of those conversations, because we know them deeply, is because we might only have 2, 3, 4 people on our staff. So we do know personally, right? And so there again, I mean, I've had someone come in, interviewed her, absolutely fell in love with her. She's going to be perfect for the role. She was going to be like a hybrid admin. She was very articulate on the phone, spoke well. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to crush it on the phone. She's, sold on the phone with trial sales. She's going to crush it. But literally, we bring her on, and like 48 hours later, one of our main coaches quit. And I'm thinking, oh crap, now I need someone to coach. So I asked her, I'm like, what do you think about coaching? And she's like, I've never done it before. And so we spent a lot of time training her to become a coach. And she was effective on the floor as a coach, but you could tell every time she had to do it, it was forced. And it just wasn't natural for her. And so, but once she did anything on the computer, like we hired her for, she crushed it. I mean, she was amazing with it. But when I forced her on the floor, she did it to kind of appease us as the owners, but you can tell comfortable for her. And I mean, I can go vice versa. Like Dustin, we always talk about, why do coaches tend to struggle with sales and phone calls and things like that? Coaches struggle with that because it's just not their zone of genius, right? They're meant to be, those are extroverts. They're meant to be in person and coaching. That's why they're good coaches. You can't chain them to a phone. And I've made the mistake of doing the opposite. Rockstar admin support professional I was going to bring in my gyms. I forced her on the floor. It wasn't a catastrophe, but it burned her out and we ended up losing her. So by forcing someone to do a task that is not in their zone of genius, it will burn them out. And I burnt her out, and there again, I lost her in only stayed with her about a year and a half. But there again, that was my fault because I forced her into doing things that just wasn't in her zone of genius.
Yes. Those are great filters to pass on to everybody. Is like, can someone do it? Yes. Like, should they do it is the question mark, right? And so there's the capability of doing it, right? And I like that phrase that EOS teaches, the entrepreneur operating system. They say GWC, get it, want it, capacity to do it. Did she get it? Do most people get what the job is? For the most part, yes. Do they want it? Usually, yes. It's for the hours and the money. Capacity, that's a great one to look at, because that could be time. Do they have the time availability? Do they have the mental skills where, you identify it wasn't her zone of genius? So I'd say capacity would be a no. There's a lot of variables within that one. But for me, I usually look at skills and time within capacity. Are they the right person to do it? And do they have the time and availability? And so that's a good filter, right? Before you put someone in it, because it's a lot of work to put someone in a role. So make it kind of challenging for yourself and for the person to make sure it's a good fit, and then things will be a lot better. So, those are all good ones. Again, Kim, you shared hey, keeping people for too long, which I definitely, I feel that one big time. Me, it's creating empathy jobs. Jason, we, like you said, these are all team related. Right seat on the bus, right person, right seat on the bus. Kim, I guess I'll jump to you next. We're just round tabling here. What is another leadership mistake that you've seen you've done in the past?
There's so many things. So something that I talk about a lot are systems and processes and procedures, because I'm so passionate about them. And I think there's kind of twofold here. Is number one, just not having systems, right? Not having systems for things, kind of being on a whim, not having things written down properly, but also the communication with your team. And something that I realized I still do is sometimes I will speak with our marketing team here at Gym Reinforcements, and I will come up with the new offer. Hey, we're going to run this, but I will forget to communicate that with my team. And then they come in and Coach Kayla is like, hey, so somebody came in today talking about a $24 per week. I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I thought it would. So she's like, I thought we were still on the 6-week, $37. So, these are mistakes that even I'm still making sometimes. I'm setting things up on the back end, but then kind of forgetting that communicating to the team of what is going on. So having set procedures for literally everything that goes on in your gym definitely number one, and then communicating them properly to your teams and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Whether it's how you bring in a new trial member, how you greet members at the door when they come in for a session, how you check people in, how you set up the room, how you break down the room. All of those are systems, and everything that happens in your gym, you should have a system for. And then it should all be clearly communicated to the team so that everybody is doing the same thing and everybody knows what to expect. But also, as you change things and as you update and as you do new marketing deals and just remembering to have a system for yourself. And that's really what it is I realized I don't have a set system for that once a month communication. I have it with our team here, marketing, but I don't have a set then communication with my team. And we have team meetings, but I need to put in that headline of, okay, guys, yeah, that's exactly what it is offer updates and what's going on. So it seems obvious, but that's a mistake I've made recently.
Well, hey, I mean, thank you. Thank you for being real. And sometimes you're making decisions so quick, like we're all gas as business owners, and our team sometimes needs gas and brake. Like, hey, change the offer. All right, let's stabilize. Hit the brakes a little. Let's see how it does. All right, we're get back to the gas. Or like, nope, just full gas. Let's go. And then we're just a tornado flying through the room, and you got to clean up the mess behind us, right? So like, I love that again, you're saying systems, because I think it not only applies to the team, it applies to the owner. We're humans, we're people. We have things that we do, and we have mistakes that we make. And so we need to have things documented, because number one, it helps us stay more organized. It helps us train the team. But then everyone's kind of following a playbook, right? Like if we're all one team, like a sports team that's all following the same playbook, we have a bar to measure against, right? And so it's like, hey, so if you say I ran a session wrong, but you ran it right, well, who says what's wrong and right if we have no playbook? It's all just opinion. Right? But if you're like, no, well, when I checked the playbook, you missed step 3, so like, that's why I'm calling you out. It's like, oh, okay. It's like a law of the land when there's a system captured. Otherwise, it's open for interpretation, and everybody can say, this or that, right? So I love that. Jason, I'll go to you again. What's another leadership mistake that you made in the past? Gym owners, let's be real. You don't love lead follow-up, and that's why I started Gym Reinforcement, so you can pass it over to us, because that's probably not why you started a gym. That's not what you love to do in business, is to chase leads down all day long. Well, hey, hand that over to me and my team of remote sales reps. We're going to text them, call them, email them, social media, DM them. We're going to do all the channels so that you don't got to worry about it, and they're going to get reached out to quickly. And that is what we do at Gym Reinforcements. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of AI and bots and automations out there that can reach out to your leads, but let's be honest, it's not very good, and people could tell right away. You probably would rather to have human to human customer service from start to finish, meaning from when they opt in to when they get serviced by your coaches. We want to have that exist throughout the whole client journey. So let us step in, let us engage your leads, let us sell them for you. And that way you can do what you do best and serve them and get them results. So if you want to book a call, go to gymreinforcements.com, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved Kim's point there too. There again, I think we could spend like 10 hours on this podcast here, but I loved how she said the systems part. I just wanted to double click on that real quick, because I think that's one of the things, like when we bring like a new coach or trainer on, like running like our boot camp sessions, they always say like same thing, like 2 or 3 weeks in, they're going through our playbook and our training manuals, and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this much went into running a session. They thought it was put the headset on, it's rah-rah time, right? They had no idea how systematic we were. Like, how do we do warm-ups? How do we greet clients? How do we check people in? Like, they had no idea how systemized everything was. So like every new coach is like, they always like that 3-week mark. They're like, holy cow, I had no idea you guys did this much behind the scenes. So, but there again, that's how you create such an awesome, consistent product, keep you in business for that long. So yeah, systems, it doesn't matter if it's just like the simplest thing, have a system for it. Like, how do you clean the restrooms? How do you check people in? Like everything, make sure you have it documented, because Dustin, like you said, there again, if you don't have that, you have no measuring tape for your business. I mean, you just don't. But yeah, I'll kind of get us into another topic here, something, I mean, I am as guilty as a day is long, is becoming a master of delegation, right? So there again, being a couple locations over, going on 8 years, there again, having a lot of fellow entrepreneur friends, not just in the fitness space, but other areas of business as well too. This is a topic that we always talk about, is how do you become the master of delegation? Because if you don't, you're always just bogged down in the mud. You're always bogged down in the weeds. And I think just because as entrepreneurs, as we start out, we're typically small operations, right? It might be just be you and your spouse, maybe you and you might have a business partner. And so there again, if it's only one or two of you, you're doing everything, right? Like you have a toilet line in your hand and then you're coaching a session, then you're selling a trial, then you're calling someone on the phone, then you're on the computer because you're just afraid of delegating at that point. You're afraid of delegating basically out of fear that doesn't exist yet. And so you're afraid that, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, no one will ever do it as good as me. And you just have to find ways to just release control and do it in small steps. So it's not like overnight where you're just going to push everything off on somebody. But going back to Kim's point, if you spend time and have those systems set in place where you say, hey, I have a new membership agreement, this person came in, this is how we process it, and then you have a system to be done, then it's easy to delegate that. But if you're just like, you hire somebody like, hey, put this in without a system in place, then yeah, it's going to be tough to delegate. So as you look at areas to delegate, just basically open up a Google Doc and say, this is how I do this process. And look at that process and think, hey, could I pay someone $15 an hour or $12 an hour or whatever to do this task? If the answer is yes, find a way to delegate that task, because then it's going to free you up to do more things in your business, to market, to grow, interact with clients, all the things that you're going to need to grow your business, not bogged down with like admin things and cleaning duties and everything like that too. Because a good friend of mine, he owns a multi-million dollar diesel repair shop, and he always an 80% rule. He says, man, if I can find someone to do it 80% as good as I am super happy. And so that was always his marker. Like if that person can do an 80% job as good as him, he wouldn't delegate it. But when you feel confident that person can do it 80%, because no one's going to get 100 because they don't own it like you do, So 80% rule is something he taught me early on too. But yeah, delegate away. And it's amazing how freeing it will be up to grow your business.
Yeah. And I think that rule really is going to be freeing to a lot of business owners, because they expect the person to match them or be better than them. And honestly, I think a lot of times it comes down to also just the pay, like the pool of talent that we're paying. Like I would say the 80% rule is a better rule. When you get someone better than you, when you're paying them $100K, you will find someone that is way better than you when you are paying a great income. But we are a lot of times someone's first job, or like, an entry level job. And so like, no, they don't have enough experience in the workforce. Right. And so it's like, you got to understand what you have and just know, okay, well, I want to have a team that's a little bit on a budget constriction. I will have to make up for it with a gap of training. And I have to put on myself expectations they will do 80% of the job as well as I would, right? I think, again, where owners get frustrated is they do compare everyone to themselves. But to your point, they have the most risk, so it pulls the most work, effort out of them. You are on the lease. You are on the payroll paychecks. Your clients are depending on you. Like, so it just pulls out your highest level of work level. And when the employee, they have nothing at risk, right? If they lose this job, they can just put a new post up and get a new job somewhere else. So like that risk is not there. And so, I think, again, doing delegation, right? But I also find that one or two things happen when people delegate. Either they get burned and they say, that's why I can't trust anyone, and they kind of go back to owning it and they just never release it again. Or they say, what could I have done better? Maybe they weren't successful because I didn't give them good enough training. Maybe I wasn't patient enough. Maybe I expected them to be lights out in week one. And it's like, no, people need time to grow. I could have been more patient. I could have did better training. I could have set better expectations. Now, when I go delegate again, I'll do a better version, right? So it's like, one of those ways is how it kind of goes. People either like lose out of it or they learn. And I'm always leaning on the side of learning, right?
I remember the first time I let one of our facility leaders sell a membership. And I remember that so many years ago. Was like, we were just in business a couple of months, and I'm like, thought of someone else selling a membership, just like, I'm not a nail biter, but man, I bit my nails off. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 1 week and just let her close memberships. And it was the hardest thing to do, was stay at the sales office. And so like, she would bring people in one by one in between sessions and stuff. And I let her do it for a whole week. And sure as shit, she went 7 for 7. And I was like, oh my God. Well, I thought I was the only person in the world that could sell a membership in my gym. Like, I was convinced that I was the only one that could do that task. But here's Michelle bringing person after person, chatting, talking, selling. And I'm like, oh my God, there is another person that can do that in the world. And so that was like the first, like, oh my gosh, I'm not that special. Like, other people can do that. So that was not hot moment. But there's 3 or 4 months in, I'm so scared of like, I'm the only one that can sell this. And believe me, I'm not the only one with sales skills in the whole world. So
Love it. I got one more that kind of we can add onto this list. And it's funny that it's all team related because that's what you're doing when you're being a leader, you're leading other people. And that is me learning the other personality types. Again, I'm a big fan of DISC and knowing those 4 personality types. That was just so eye-opening to me, and it really helped me with my awareness of myself that like I often would think people would do things the same way as me. And so again, I'm labeled inside of that system as a high D. So then I would just immediately assume everyone's going to do things the same way as me. So I'm like, I do this, I do that. I'm very, like fast paced, this. And then other people, I'd just be frustrated. So this helped me to realize the different ways that people are wired naturally and where they are strong, and that you should give them, tasks that are strong, and that match their strengths, and then things that you should keep them away from because it's a complete mismatch of their strengths. And so that, again, those were filters that were then installed in me, and now I see them all the time, and that was very helpful. So if anybody listening to this has not, done the research on that, I would encourage you to. I won't dive into it, but for me, I'd be frustrated. I was like, man, I told that team member to do something a week ago, and they still didn't do it. But then I found out as I learned about DISC and they took the test, they were high S, who are slow to begin and they don't like change and they think through a lot of details before they execute. For us, we're like, let's just go, we'll figure out the details later, high D. And so that's where I just thought they're being lazy. I thought they're a bad fit. I thought I got to get them out of the company. And then once I heard that, for some reason, it helped me be more patient. And then I also changed my expectations because I call it like safe labeling, right? There's like bad labels you can slap on people, but no one gets offended when you call them a high S or a high C. It's like you can label that. No one's been out of shape. So I'm like, hey, Dustin, you just delegated this to this gal. She's high S. Minimum, she needs a week to get it done, right? And like if she gets it done in a week, be happy. If it takes her 2, again, that's the longest you'll wait. And then when I'm talking to someone else on the team who moves very quick, it shortened my, my expectations of how quick they're going to move because they regularly get things done quick. Should we have everyone on the team on the same, kind of schedule? Yes. But like either way you lose because I can speed up that person on the S and they're stressed out and they don't do as good of a job. And then oftentimes I'm slowing down the people who move too quick because they're missing details. So it's more about like customizing, right? That's like part of also being a coach is like, I love to put things on a set it and forget it, but like life is messy, people are messy. And so it's more about learning how to customize based on what they're doing. Doesn't mean you got to completely just like let everybody run their own show and you have no rules, but some small, I guess, like graciousness and like allowances of space and time go a long way. So that for me is a big one, is learning about DISC. How about for you, Kim? Did DISC help you in some way? Business?
For sure. I mean, I think, like you said, it's like we go at it with this expectation of leadership looks a certain way, and I'm going to delegate things out and tell people how to do things, and that everybody's expected to do it the same way. But we're not all the same type of human. Our brains don't always work, the same way, even the 3 of us here. And really sitting down and having that aha moment, that light bulb, and learning everybody's different personality types. Even just knowing how to communicate differently with people. I have a team member on who's been with me for years, and we had a struggle point for a little while of how to communicate effectively with one another. And once I got to know more about her DISC personality, because we talked about DISC here, and I was like, let me bring this into the gym. It was that, okay, wow, this is why we're having such a struggle, because we are different personality types, and learning each other's personality, the way that we both communicate and the way that we both do take on tasks really was the thing that we needed. And now we communicate very differently and more effectively. And I think that goes kind of perfectly into kind of my next thing. It really is proper communication with your team members. No matter how big or little something is, it's kind of easy when something is big and right in front of your face to communicate about it. But it's, for me, one of the things that I had to learn was the little things. And we did a coaching academy years ago, Dustin, where you actually are the light bulb in this situation for me, is I would find myself running around the studio, I give them so much direction. We do so much training and we do so many things on the big stuff and how to run sessions and all of this. But I'm very OCD with making sure the plyo boxes, the numbers are all facing up. When we put the weights away, I want them all facing the same way because it's all about perception. Making sure X, Y, and Z is perfectly set in the bathroom, even the toilet paper. I'm an over person that you guys are putting it under. But instead of communicating those little things, I would just run around fixing them. It's like the mom cleaning up after the kids and then just continuing to do that day after day and week after week. And you said something in one of our academies that was like, just point it out to them. Because if you just continue to do it, what are the options? You're going to always have to continue to do it. They're never going to they're never going to know that that's the way that you want it and that they're not doing it that way. And then what happens when you're not there? They're not going to do it because you've not communicated that properly with them. I was talking, to a friend about this today because we were talking about the podcast and the topic. And he said, do you think that comes from, as a leader, you're giving them so much direction and, they have so many things that they have to do throughout the day. Are you doing that because you feel bad correcting them or giving them more instructions? And I said, I guess that is it. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm telling them they did something wrong because the plyo boxes are upside down. So I think it's like realizing it's not that big of a deal. Hey guys, just real quick to let you know, I really prefer all the numbers to face in this particular way or whatever your individual things are. They're going to be fine with it because once I sat down and said all those things, they're like, why the hell didn't you just sooner? Like, why are you just running around doing this? Let us know. We're happy to do those things. So yeah, kind of over communicating literally everything.
And yeah, a way that I jokingly say it's like, I have this curse. I see more details than any other person. Help me with this curse, right? Like, I wish I could just be like you guys and walk blind past the file boxes that are all set up differently. But I have it. I have this curse and I need you guys to help me, right? And so that's kind of like the way I jokingly say it, right? Like, and that way it's again, safe labeling, like, oh, it's the Dustins Curse. They start throwing around this thing and they're joking like, hey, fix that box. Otherwise the Dustins Curse come after you. And it's like, now my team's being playful versus, again, a rule of a dictator coming down and in the whips and like, get to, do it the way I want it. That's how I always try to do it. And it seemed to work. Jason, how about for you, man? Was this helpful when you got those eyes opened up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing when it comes down to communication, like you're saying, Kim, is it's not like just coming off as like this paranoid OCD person, but just tell them it's a why. Like, tell them why you want that done. So we jokingly say about, the dumbbells, all the numbers are pointing up, plyo boxes, like, are your TRX straps evenly spaced? And like, we jokingly, like my clients even this day, like they'll joke with my OCD, like they'll walk by and like kick a dumbbell on purpose and like they snicker at me just because we have that kind of relationship. But it comes down to telling them why, So if it's like, why do you want the toilet paper that way? Or like, why do you want those numbers pointing up? Just tell them why. And like for us, I mean, I'm the same way with our studio. I tell our coaches, like one of the first things we hire when you hire them, it's say, hey, these orange cones, you better look down. They better have a straight line to it. Like these dumbbells, they better go, lowest to highest, left to right, all numbers up. And I get that weird look and they're waiting for the why, and tell them the why. So my why is, I tell them, hey, when someone new comes in this facility, they're giving us a 30-second interview, right? So think of like the first time you go into like a restaurant in a different town. Like you're looking all over the place, right? You're looking at the floor, you're looking maybe at the bathroom entrance, you're looking at the menu, you're looking at the person cooking behind. Like we spend 30 seconds judging no matter what we do or where we go. And so our clients, where that brand new lead is doing the same thing. They walk in, you greet them, their eyes are darting all around. And what do I want them to see? I want them to see everything crisp, clean, in a row. And so I tell our new coaches this, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. And so this way, it's not like me being this OCD person on them and I just tell them why. I say, hey, we do this. I want this lined up, and I want this pointing this way. And I tell them the why right away. It's because that's what we do, because we want new leads to know that we are on point, we are professional. Even like our current clients, they come in, they see everything in a row. That is our product, right? As everything is neat and on point. So, I mean, that's kind of like my example with why we are so rigid with how we set up our studio. But there again, if it's anything in your business, you want to communicate with your team, just tell them the why and say, hey, X, Y, and Z, here's the why. And then you usually get less resistance. But if you just come off as like spitting at the mouth and like pow, 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 and you're like, Dustin, if you just hit them with certain things over their head, they're like, what's the big deal? But as long as you tell them the why, That's all that matters. And there again, like, I'm glad you brought the disc thing too. And so when you're telling them the why, make sure that communication, you're always taking that into consideration as well too. So if you're doing disc training, whether you've never done it, make sure you do it with your team as well. So make sure like everything that you're training yourself on disc, like you communicate better with your team. That's awesome. But make sure your communication is a two-way street too. So train your team members and coaches on disc so they understand you better too. And I remember when we did it, we did a little bit different one. It was called a take flight for learning. Same thing, but you assigned a bird instead of the VI and S and K C. And so that was really cool. Is now some of my team members are like, oh, that's why Jason's like that. And so it made them communicate with me better too, so make sure you do that kind of training. The personality types is a two-way street. And then that really leads to, especially in 2 locations and multiple team members, they were coming to me with ideas and feedback in a totally different tone after we did that as a team training. So
it's a commitment to excellence, right? That's what it's all about, is like, we want to be excellent. What do ordinary gyms do and what do extraordinary gyms do? And that's what we want to do. We want to create an amazing, excellent client experience. And that's, the filter you could put it through. Is this what an ordinary gym would do, or is this what an extraordinary gym would do, right? An excellent gym. So guys, that is our leadership mistakes. We'll wrap here. That's the pod. And, essentially, we just wanted to share what mistakes we made so you don't repeat them. Like we said, we could have made a list 20 long for today. We shared half a dozen, but, essentially these are our way of like passing these on, between the 3 of us, almost 30 years gym experience. Like, take that and fast forward your leadership growth. But the best thing you can do is, you can read all the books, you can take the courses, you can listen to us and sit under our learning tree, but it's application. Go out and work on being a great leader. And, really try to become the leader that you wish you had when you were, coming up, right? That's really what we're all trying to do, is like, hey, no one was there for me when I needed them, so I'm going to shortcut it for my team and I'm going to be a great leader for them. And that's what we need, right? Moving forward. So with that, guys, we'll see you next week. Later. Gym owners, I want to officially invite you into my free Facebook group just for you. It's called Fitness Sales Made Simple. And essentially, I'm sharing free resources in there all the time to help you grow your business. Doesn't matter to me if you ever work with gym reinforcements. You can gather all kinds of cool content and tools and resources. We have free webinar trainings, free guides, free lead magnets, free scripts that you can send out to make sales. And it's all in the group. So go ahead and click on the link in the description and you could get inside and get these free tools. See you on the inside.